This is Suit Up Sports.
Suit Up Sports.
Where opinions are as sharp as a tailored suit. No fluff, no gimmicks, just unfiltered, hard-hitting takes on sports and a whole lot more. It's time to suit up. Now here's your host, DJ the Suit Stout.
Welcome to Suit Up Sports. I'm DJ the Suit Stout, along with 10-year NFL vet Frank Garcia. Frank, how you doing?
I'm doing great. What a great weekend, and looking forward to another one of these great podcasts.
Me too, man. Dylan, how was your weekend? Good? Dylan had to hold down the fort a while we were gone. I was in Key West for Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Everything's still intact here?
Everything's intact. Yeah, I haven't gave the full walkthrough yet, but it appears that there's no dog feces laying around, which is one thing.
All the beer cans are in place.
Beer cans gone. Yeah. So I think they did a pretty good job of holding down the fort. But yeah, like I said, I was in Key West, so my wife surprised me for my birthday that we were going to go to Key West, just she and I.
Well, before we get any further, we do have to wish you happy birthday. We haven't seen you.
Thank you.
Days, so you just had your next birthday.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing as we get older in life.
You ain't lying.
And it's great to see. I've known you for 30 years now. Almost.
Yeah, a long time.
It feels like forever.
Yeah.
We've been through so many things, but happy birthday, man.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. And yeah, I was torn because, my wife and I love going to Key West. We've gone pretty much every year that we've been dating, married, whatever. So we've been probably 20 something times, and she surprised me with it and I was excited, but then I'm on all these text group with you and then some other buddies or where are we watching the Masters? And I'm like, oh man, like if I'm traveling on Friday and I'm traveling back on Sunday, I tried to figure out how I could politely say, hey babe, could we maybe change our flight, or we don't have to go, it's okay, and she was not taking any of those. So I had to figure out then how the hell I was going to watch the Masters while enjoying Key West. So
it's like one of those days or those weekends where everybody, goes and gets their procedures done.
Yeah.
Because they know that they're just going to be posted up on the couch watching golf. And, I don't know if any better golf tournament than, the Masters where we do that. Maybe the U.S. Open, but I don't even think it's to the extent of the Masters. Just, the amount of people that go out and play golf, the amount of people that watch this tournament is unbelievable. But you were in Key West watching it, of all places, posted up. I saw your setup.
It was pretty sweet.
Online. You posted on our TikTok and all of our other venues that we're on.
Yeah,
YouTube and Facebook, and it looked like you were watching it better than all of us.
Well, we had Krista, because she knew I was going to want to watch the Masters. She rented us a cabana right there by the pool, so we had full service, drinks, food, TV in there.
Wow.
So
that's like two. So you're like, so I'm guessing, what's the next big event?
Man,
it's gonna be the draft.
Well, you got NFL draft for sure.
Is that something you're going to post up for with the draft? I don't know how big of a Panther fan and Giant fan you are.
The draft, more than likely, you and I will probably be doing some type of live show around it.
Well, that's my point. That was my point.
But I don't know if we'll be posted. We might be posted up in my bonus room.
We've done March Madness on the road.
Yep.
We've done the Masters on the road. So I'm guessing now that we have this podcast that's taken off and sky's the limit, you're probably sponsored to go down there to Key West, I'm sure.
We both like to travel.
Yeah.
And we both enjoy doing that. So, yeah, I would love it. And
we're looking for – so basically what I'm doing is I'm begging for our next sponsor to take us somewhere for the draft. And maybe we can go watch it in a nice warm place.
Hook us up, and we'll do some live we'll cut in live after the Panthers make their picks and things like that. But anyway, it worked out fine. Sunday I dialed in, was in the cabana for the most part until we left for the airport, and then I was following on my phone, and then on the plane on my iPad, and so I didn't miss a shot. And man, I tell you what, out of all the golf I've watched, and it's funny because I didn't play golf growing up. My dad didn't play golf growing up. I always thought golf was like a girl sport. Like I always thought guys don't play golf.
Here's the way it was. Our generation, because I'm the same generation you are.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't make the baseball team, you went out and played golf.
Yeah,
right? That was it. I mean, you were good enough to play baseball. I was good enough to play baseball.
Yep.
And we were able to make the team. But all those guys, and, we probably had 30, 40 guys, but you take 24, 23, 24 guys, that leaves 8 guys. What are they going to do? They want to hit a ball with a bat or a stick, so they go and play golf. And, that's what they're doing. But nowadays,
now it's everybody.
It's everybody.
It's
now you might want to play golf before you play baseball.
Well, exactly. And, it was also at the time when we grew up, it was also the rich kid sport.
Yeah.
And so I just never ever thought about playing golf until when I was running radio stations. My boss at the time, they would go play golf like on Thursdays and Fridays, and I would always say no. And one day he goes, dude, so you're just going to sit in here and work when you could be out on the golf course having some cocktails, playing golf with us? Like, I don't think that's a very smart decision. And I was like, well, do you have an extra set of clubs?
Yeah.
And that's where it started.
Well, there's about 2 sports that we can do where we drink and we get better at.
Yeah.
One is golf. The other one's bowling.
You ain't lying.
So, those are the sports where you can go out and do what we like to do as guys.
Yeah.
Smoke a cigar, be out in the outdoors, not have anybody nagging on us.
Locker room talk.
Curse ourselves out every now and then, berate ourselves, but also have some beverages out there.
Exactly. And so I started playing golf, and that's when I really started paying attention to it. And I don't remember a more dramatic Sunday. And there's been some, but with all the pressure on Rory, with everyone for the most part wanting Rory to win, with him going up against his arch enemy and Bryson DeChambeau, the live golfer who took the money and uses beat him and uses all this science behind his game. He's the anti kind of old school golfer, and he's an internet sensation now with his break 50 thing that he does and chipping balls over his house to try to get holes in one. And
he has a great thing where he plays with President Trump. On the YouTube,
that was break 50,
where you travel around, you play different courses.
Yeah, and he's doing with all these celebrities, and so
he's become probably in America, anyways. Even though he plays on the live, he's probably become the most polarizing golfer on the tour.
Yeah,
right. And I know he plays on live, so Rory is a guy that either you love or you hate. But I've always had a tough time rooting for foreigners. Versus Americans,
right? In terms
in those matchups, even if it's guys that had nothing, but good things for the game, and Rory's done nothing but good things for the game, But guys like even Gary Player versus anybody that's American, I was going to root for the American.
Sure,
and it's just the way I was brought up, through the Olympics and all things like that. It's USA first, and everybody else. It's not that I'm not rooting for him, but you talk about the emotions in this, DJ.
Man,
I mean, it was a roller coaster of emotions because of what I said. I originally wanted Bryson, to win this, and the way he won the U.S. Open, he's starting to get it, right? You see him shaking the hands. He has, I think, of all the golfers on tour right now, probably the most flair and opportunity to really grow the game because of his charisma and personality. Everybody used to think he was dry and kind of boring and a little baby and whining and complaining and things like that. And that might have been true. I think, maybe that, him coming out of his shell, was listening to that criticism and then understanding that if I want to be great, if I want to, just be trans-global and popular worldwide, I have to come out of my shell. And you see him now. There was a great story about him after leading or being right there in the hunt for the Masters on Saturday night.
Yeah.
He's hanging out. I can't imagine these guys' routines, what's going through their head. And I know we're going to talk to Charlie a little bit later.
Charlie
I'd love to kind of pick his brain with that too. But as a competitor, the night before your biggest game, right? The night before something that you're really excited to be and do. I mean, you can imagine the butterflies, the angst, the anticipation, but I think the hardest thing for anybody is to just maintain a routine, right? Going to bed with a lead or, being right there in contention has got to be just nerve-wracking. But anyways, he goes out and he's just going to try to blow some steam off, probably after a nice dinner, maybe has a glass of, wine or whatever he drinks, water, who knows, but he goes and he starts a little walk around the neighborhood, and he sees in the corner, out in the dark, a light on with a putting green, about 6, 8, 10 guys out there putting because they were all there to watch the Masters. And he strolls over there to this putting green, and he's like, hey, hey, what's up, guys? How are you? He just kind of being friendly, being himself, and just kind of introducing himself. And the guy goes, "Well, who are you?" I'm John Smith. He goes, "I'm Bryson DeChambeau." Another guy pops off and goes, "Oh, hi, I'm Jack Nicklaus." Right? So they didn't believe him.
Yeah.
They didn't believe it was Bryson DeChambeau, and he started putting with them. And I'm sure the story started coming, and they realized it was really Bryson DeChambeau. And he went out there and putted for hours.
Yes, so they hung out with him and was great.
Hung out with him, probably had a couple of drinks, and shot the bull with him, and but that's something that's a guy that's getting it, right? He has that. He's brought himself back to almost. I don't want to give him too much credit yet, but John Daly, right? He's the common man guy, right? Everybody's going to root for a guy like that because number one, he crushes the ball. Number two, he has some flair. He has he has some balls. He has some fire in his veins. When he makes something or when he misses something, you see the disappointment. But he has come a long way from being that guy that everybody hated and nobody wanted to talk to and everybody rooted against, to the guy I think a lot of people were rooting for on Sunday.
I think so too. And it was funny because yesterday, watching the first hole, and Bryson starts the day 2 down, and after one hole, boom, we got a tie ball game. And I'm going, oh, and Krista is sitting next to me, and at the airport, I'm going, oh my God, Rory, because that's the thing about Rory. If you didn't think Rory was going to win, it was because you knew the demons he's had in his head when it comes to Augusta, and I just felt that he was going to blow it. And Charlie talked about that. Again, Charlie will join us here in a little while talking some golf, but Charlie mentioned that earlier, that there had never been a guy who had the lead on day 4 of the Masters, or I think it was just the Masters, maybe not just majors, that had ever won it again after blowing it. And so when Rory starts off with a double bogey, I'm thinking, here he goes. And Bryson, you're going, oh man, if you're Bryson, it couldn't work out better because now you're even with Rory. His head's now spinning about, man, I just double bogeyed the first hole, and you got it. And then DeChambeau falls apart for a few holes, and Rory gets the train back on the tracks, and here we go again. And Bryson kind of fell back throughout the rest of the day, and Rory's kind of hanging up there. And then you see Justin Rose get hot again. Birdie. And you're going, no way. Is this guy who led the first 2 days of the tournament going to now make a run back?
43 years old. He would have been the oldest first major winner to ever do that, to accomplish what Rose did. And, again, another English guy that, it's hard to hate him because he really just goes about his business, right? He doesn't have that swagger. He's not like Colin Montgomery where he's snooty and he takes his time. He just goes out there and he enjoys the game, and he's a class act guy, but getting back to Rory in the beginning of that match, imagine I'm as an ex-athlete, I'm trying to wonder, you see the devil on one side and the angel on the other side. If they could make a cartoon or a movie out of what's happening between these two things, right? With that first hole where you go double bogey, and you just have all the emotions in the world, and this devil jumps up and he becomes like this raging animal, right? And he's like in your ear and he's bouncing and hollering at you, and he's telling you how terrible you are, and here you go again, you idiot, you suck, you can't do this. All the demons are going to come out of you right then. It might have been the best thing that ever happened to him. You know why? Because this angel over here started growing, and it started talking a little bit more, and it started quieting this devil down, and he got in a rhythm, and he got in a groove until he got to like 13, right? And he was playing great. I mean,
he was
some of the best shots you've ever seen, but also amazingly, some of the worst shots you would ever expect from a guy of his caliber to miss.
Yeah.
So I would just love to be like, lay him on a couch and say, what would take me through each hole and the emotions that you were going through, and the push and the pull. And as an athlete, you've seen those. You see it on the golf course now in a minute way. This is magnified times 1,000.
That's what I was going to say. And golf is the worst because, as you know, with the golf swing, one little thing makes your ball go astray. So when your brain starts telling you, all right, rotate more, or you're moving, you're swaying, whatever the thing. With my golf swing, it tells me 1,000 things. But when you're that good and all you do every day of your life is hit golf balls, like you said, when your brain starts getting involved, and he said after that first hole, he goes, when I double bogeyed, he said, I just remembered that excuse me, that a couple years ago when John Rahm won, he double bogeyed the first hole as well on the Sunday. So he said, and he won it still.
But he wasn't playing Bryson DeChambeau, who had just wore you out in the U.S. Open.
Yeah,
I mean, in a similar type of fashion where Rory gave it back. So here we go again.
He also said that this was the most nervous he's ever been playing golf. He said that the beginning of the day, he told the reporters, I think it was Marty Smith, that he planned on playing this round in a bubble. He wanted to just stay inside his own bubble. And they said, well, did the bubble burst? And he was like, well, on 13 it burst. And he goes, it took me a few holes to kind of get back into the bubble. Like so he was very honest. Like he did talk about the nerves, and he talked about he did let some bad thoughts creep into his head and whatever. And it probably helped him also that Bryson wasn't putting any pressure on him. If Bryson would have been throwing the hammer down, then I think he would. He even said he didn't look at the board, but when he went in the water on 13, he said I had to look at the board. And then I looked at it and I realized that, okay, just get up and down. You're still in this tournament.
Still had a comfortable lead. And then he goes to 14 and he pars, I believe. And then he goes to 14 and he birdies. He birdies the par 3. And then he goes to, it was 14 he pars. 15, he hits this amazing shot and eagles it around the trees. Arguably one of the best golf shots you've ever seen in your entire life.
Yeah.
To about 4 feet, where he had missed earlier in the round. And I'm telling you, I mean, DJ, when you look at, he probably threw up 3 times. But he's the first golfer ever to have 4 double bogeys in a round
to win the Masters.
In a tournament to win the major.
Yeah.
He's also become one of 6 guys to win the Grand Slam, and all these things had to be weighing on him. Maybe not the double bogeys. He's probably put that aside and said, okay, let me just get back in my, on my bike and, just kind of stay the course a little bit, and things are going to happen. But when you're realizing, you've never won this tournament, you had an opportunity and you choked it off 10 years ago to be able to do that. I wonder how much of that was in his head, as well as becoming one of 6 guys to solidify themselves in greatness, right?
Yeah,
we always talk about like different levels of the Hall of Fame in each sport. Like basketball, you're going to have your Jordans, your Bryants, your Birds, your Matt. You're going to have your top tier guys, your top 10 guys that are just in a different class. In football, you're going to have your Walter Paytons, you're going to have your Tom Brady's, you're going to have your Lawrence Taylors. There's Reggie White's. Yeah. There is a different class versus guys that get in the Hall of Fame. Right. And this with Rory kind of solidifies his
legendary
and it makes him a legend.
It's legend. I mean,
that was a legendary performance.
And that's what made it. That's what made the drama even more, intense, was because not only did he needed this to get his green jacket, he needed this to also become a legend in golf. And he said, like, he opened his press conference afterwards and he said, all right, let me ask the first question. What are you going to ask about next year? Meaning you can't ask me that anymore. And he goes, we got that off the table. And he said all the emotion surprised him that he had that much emotion, but he goes, it just goes to show you, even though I knew I was carrying a lot of this burden around and wanting this off my back, you don't know how much it really is there. And he goes, man, missing those 2 putts. He goes, God almighty, I couldn't have made it any harder on myself. I mean, I missed 2 chances to win a regulation.
On 18, he missed the little 3-4 footer.
Yeah, he goes
similar to what he did in U.S. Open.
Exactly.
And again, I mean, it just everything was.
When he missed that, by the way, I was on the airplane, and when he missed it, I had headphones on, so you don't realize you're talking as loud as you're talking, and I was like, oh my God! And I a couple bleeps in there. He missed it, and I see Crystal look at me in shock. She's like, you just yelled that. And I'm like, oh, I forgot I had the headphones on. But like, that's how intense it was when he missed it. And I wanted to play off at that point in time. And Justin Rose is over there on the range, yep. Keeping warm, whatever, which has got to be hard as well. And then
Justin Rose didn't play the last hole badly.
No, he parred it.
He hit a great.
Roy just played it perfectly.
Justin Rose hit a incredible second shot.
Sure did.
To about 12 feet.
Yeah.
And he got a little unlucky that the ball didn't go higher and come back like Rory's did. The same exact shot, almost in the same exact place Rory had from about 125 yards out. And if you've never seen that hole or played that hole, it's kind of a slight dog leg right. But if you cut it off too, you have to get it out before you start turning it or hit it high enough to balloon it over that right side with a little bit of a cut. And that was kind of Rory's natural shot, and also Rose as well. But when you look at those swings and the repetition of those. I mean, Rory was literally in the same exact distance, probably 5 yards away from where his first shot was at. So my question was at the time is like, what's the chances he hits the same exact club or saws one off or hits a different one, tries to knock something down? Because what has got to be going through his head in that moment when he gets into the playoff and he's sitting there and he's like, well, here's the same exact shot. I have a chance to be great, or I have a chance to be a donkey.
Yeah.
Right. And
or it's like he has a chance to be great and a legend, or he will now go down as the worst choke job in the history of golf.
That's right.
Like it's one or the other.
Well, it would have been right up there. Van de Velde, from the British Open,
that was
always be the one of the worst.
But this one would have been there with it.
At this course, you talk about Nick Faldo and when I'm trying to think of who he's talking
about
when he lost the 7-shot. Greg Norman, Nick Faldo. Greg Norman collapsed. Greg Norman, the Nick Faldo collapse, where he lost that 7-shot lead, 8-shot lead going into the final day. That was a little bit different because Rory only had a 2-shot lead, but he separated, right? And I think the interpretation was from all the viewers is he is going to choke this away. Yeah. Just like he did the U.S. Open.
I thought when he missed the first of the 2 putts on the last 3 holes or whatever it was, I thought, here he's going to choke. And me and a couple of my buddies had put in like 50 bets throughout the week on this guy to win, this guy to win. You try to see who's hot. And we had Justin Rose winning the first round, which paid
that's big.
$700.
That's big.
But
probably a $10 bet.
Yeah, that's what we did, like a $10 bet. So
for 7,000 to 1.
The one thing I'll also say that, and again, we'll have Charlie Nance, our golf guy, on here shortly. We'll ask him this, and you've watched a lot more golf than I have, and obviously you're a really good golfer where I'm not. But I will say, at times during this tournament, because you remember, Rory started off great, and then I think he got to 4 or 5 under on Thursday, and then fell apart. And I think he ended the first day at even. Then the second day, he just comes out and fires a 66, and he looks when he's on his game. And I never really realized this until this tournament. When he's on his game, I don't think there's anybody better than him. Like I really
not right now.
Yeah, not right now.
Just think of the fact that he was playing with what everybody considers the longest driver in golf. And
Rory outdrove him.
And Rory was out driving him consistently.
Yeah.
Effortlessly, by the way. It wasn't like he was manufacturing and going after it. Like when Bryson goes after it, he has this weird cockeyed stance, and he's working up that lather to get that as much distance as he can, and he can blast one for sure. He's obviously been able to dial it down a bunch, so to have a little bit more consistency, but still not at the level of which Rory gets through that ball. I mean, the swing speed that he comes through and the way that he generates, and he's not a big guy. He's only like 5'9", but he has, bigger legs, kind of a thick guy, thicker build, a little husky, but he gets through that ball and it just explodes off of his club. He was averaging, I think, 340, 350, on the day. And then when you look at averages, he's not going to have that, but there was a couple of drives he's pumping out there 360.
I mean, they both were. And Rory's my size. He's 5'10".
Yeah.
Like it ain't like he's this big dude. I mean, Bryson is a bigger guy, and they both smoked the ball. The other thing that was interesting is because of the whole Live PGA hatred, Rory was, captain PGA, and Bryson and Brooks Koepka kind of were captains LIV that took the big money, Dustin Johnson as well. But
to Bryson's credit, I give him a lot of credit because he has elevated his game in these moments on the PGA where, Dustin Johnson, on the other hand, was the world's number one for how many months in a row and was breaking records and was playing great. As soon as he went to the Live, he's fallen off the planet.
Yeah.
Right? He got that guaranteed money, and he's not as motivated as he once was to get out there and grind like he was doing when he was on the PGA Tour. So I give Bryson DeChambeau a lot of credit.
I agree.
For continuing to get better, because even though he's playing in the Live and has all that guarantee.
Yeah, because even Bruce Koepka,
but Koepka,
right. He's won a major since he's been with Liv, but he hasn't done much. He didn't make the cut this weekend. Brooks Koepka. So he really hasn't done a whole lot. So you're right. I mean, now some of the guys,
Brooks was in the hunt last year, and he's
won one major since he's been lit.
And he's won since. So
US Open,
he's been in the hunt. He's not fallen off the planet like DJ.
No, DJ's fallen off.
DJ has fallen off the planet where he did. I don't think he made the cut in this tournament. If he did, I think he did, but barely. It was near the bottom, and this is coming from a guy. This course suited him, and he was shooting record low numbers. With his wins, where he looked unstoppable. He looked a lot like Rory did yesterday when he was playing well. Yeah. When he hit his great, Dustin had that ability.
He did.
Right. He had that length, that easy, smooth, that pop off his club. And when he got his putter going, it was lights out.
Well, I tell you one thing. I should remember this. And I don't know why, but remember this for me next year, and you can partake. But you got to bet Patrick Reed at the Masters. Like, not only has he won it before, but he plays the heck out of that course. And listen,
if it not for 15,
that missed putt, he would have been in the playoff.
For 13, if it had not been for 13, where he 3-putted from like 4 feet, he hit it past, and he tapped in and makes I think it's a double on that hole. If it had not been for that hole, he would have been in that playoff.
If that putt went in, he would have been in the playoff as well. Right. So remember, bet him top 5, minimum top 10.
It's the same thing for Rose, by the way. Rose,
he's tough in every.
This course suits him more than any other course, and I had a bet with him, each and every day, and it was after he shot his his low round where he was leading the tournament on the second day. A lot of the guys I was in the pool with, we were talking about, is he going to fold? I said, none of us took him in our, we picked like 6 guys. You go like a snake draft, you go back and forth.
Yeah.
And there was only like 6 of us in there, but nobody took Rose. And we're all kicking ourselves in the butt saying, if we'd have took him, we'd have won this whole thing. We'd have won our entire pool, but nobody did. So we made side bets up with him because we wanted to watch him. We knew he was going to be on our television all day. So my bet was, making, par in 72, making over under 72. And, we because I said, well, he's going to break. He's probably going to sit at par the next couple of days. Right. And then fall off on Sunday because he's just older. Right. That typically is what happens because of the undulation of these greens. It happened with Freddie Couples. It happened with with Watson a couple of years ago when he was in contention. Guys just towards the end, they get so tired and the nerves and everything else. And these young backs and these young legs just, come to the forefront and are still pumping it out there 330 where you're hitting, 260, 270 and having to hit a 3-iron into a green with undulation that looks like, a couch with bumpy pillows on it.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So, it's a completely different feel, but, he
shows up in the majors. He does.
To his credit, he fought his ass off and continued to play top-notch golf. And the day before, if he had not missed a couple of putts, he 3-putted.
He slowed down at the end of round 3 when he just kind of slowed down. Yeah,
he couldn't get into
because Sunday he got on the back 9. Didn't he birdie? I want to say 4 out of 5 in a row.
He birdied. He shot. I think on the back 9.
He was on fire.
It looked like a bunch of circles. I think with one square.
Yeah, and I think when Rory even said when he did look up, I think after he went in the water on 13 and he saw Rose was creeping. He was like, it's 2 other things that I want to mention that I thought were interesting before we bring on Charlie Nance, our golf guru and America's caddy. 2 things. Number 1, yesterday morning as I wake up and Kristen went out for a jog or whatever, and, I'm laying in bed reading stuff, and there was 2 tickets at the time left to the Masters on StubHub. 2 left, or SeatGeek, one of those.
And it was your birthday?
Yeah, well, listen to this. I can promise
how many thousands
I would not have wanted her to do this. But they were $20,000, $20,587 a piece, times 2. Okay. Then the fees on those tickets were $76.20 times 2 for a total of $58,333. And somebody bought them.
Yeah.
And when I'm thinking,
they took out their wallet, their back pocket, and said, "How much would you like, sir?"
I guess, but
that's the type of money that's floating around there.
Exactly. But what I thought about that was this. I don't care how rich you are. If you spend that much money, right? And we know some people who are very, very wealthy who could do that. We are not one of those, unfortunately, not yet. But even those guys, if you're going to put out that much money, you're doing it because you want to see this DeChambeau McIlroy heavyweight fight. And at the end of the round, I thought to myself, okay, those guys got their money's worth. Their money worth. I mean, not only do they see where at roller coaster where Rory was looking good, then oh my God, you feel bad for him, and then he's hot again, you feel bad for him.
I mean, think about it, DJ. Think about what you're saying. I mean, and let's put this on a bigger stage. I mean, we're talking about golf, and not many people, a lot of people are going to tune out when you talk golf. Not this time. Right? Yeah. I mean, this is the only thing going on a Sunday afternoon on a great day for most places. It's spring is in the air. You got the fake birds chirping in the back. You got the azaleas blooming, perfect conditions, and you got two heavyweights at the top of the leaderboard slugging it out.
Yeah.
and all the hype in the world is built up. Name me another event that you just mentioned, $58,000.
Yeah.
That you would pay and be and not be disappointed in to go see. The only thing I can think of that would even be close to this would be a heavyweight fight. Right? Because even a football game, it's not going to live up to this. I mean, how do you live up to, the highs and the lows and the peak? Maybe an NBA game 7 where you see the lead change back and forth, and you have the Lakers versus the Celtics type of matchup back in the 80s where, Bird and Magic and Kareem and Parrish and McHale are all there, and it's a hatred that exists. I mean, maybe that's something that you could watch in a game 7 with the back and forth, or a national championship with your team.
Well, that's what I was going to say. If it was a Super Bowl or a national championship and your team was in it and won, I could see it being. I've been to 2 Super Bowls with my team in it, and they lost both times, and it stunk. It's the worst.
Oh, I played in one where we lost. Yeah. It's the most disappointing thing in the world.
It stinks. You want to beat it. I want to fight everybody as I'm walking out of there. Anybody
you walk out
different jersey,
you're just numb. Like, what did I just waste all of this time and effort and money to go do?
But if they were to have won, then that would, I'm sure, be a different ballgame. I've been to World Series with my kids, Dylan O'Connor. And
I think going to games. Let me rephrase that question then, because going to games, you might have a little bit of a different experience. If you were going to the Masters, you might have that same experience. But I'm gonna tell you, golf in person is not the same as golf on TV. It's a lot different.
Oh yeah.
Right? And I'm not saying it's better.
No,
NASCAR in person.
Usually you just post up at a bar and you watch it on TV, even if you're there.
NASCAR in person, baseball in person, much better, but on TV, not as good.
Yeah.
Golf in person, I don't think is as good as it is on TV. I think golf is made for TV because they can give you multiple angles.
You get to see all the different players.
Multiple holes. They have the commentary. I don't have to leave out and get off my fat ass, and I can sit there and drink as many drinks as I want.
Yeah.
And and I don't have to walk all over the course trying to chase down guys and see where the ball's at. You can't. It's tough to see.
Yep.
Right. So let me rephrase that question: what have you watched on television? Name me one event that you can say the anticipation was there, the buildup was there, and you walked away saying that might be the best thing I've ever seen. Because I can think of one that comes to mind right now, not being there, but watching on TV, and it was. I think it was 97 Kirk Gibson home run.
Pitch hit home run when he was hurt. Comes off the bench. Grand slam home run.
Yeah, grand slam.
I believe.
And I'm sitting there. I remember where I was at, and I bust out in tears.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think was it 97?
I don't remember the year, but I remember the game. I mean, you're right. I remember Vince Scully calling him, and they call him out there. He'd been hurt. And I think it was the first or second pitch, and he just crushed it right over the right field wall. And that would be one of them. I think when Christian Laettner hit the turn, when Grant Hill threw the court long pass to Laettner, and Laettner caught it and faked one way, shot the other.
That's a great one.
I remember running around my house. I just couldn't believe it.
That's a great one.
And that was a huge one.
That was the first national championship with them going on.
Laettner, yep. That was against Kentucky, right? Yeah. And then I'll tell you another one that was like that for a different way, and because our Carolina buddies hated it, but when Villanova came down and hit the 3 to beat Carolina, that same kind of thing. I was just in shock because, like we talked about before, the older you get, you don't hate your other teams as much as you hate them. I still don't like the Tar Heels. I still don't like the Atlanta Falcons, and I can name other teams I don't like, but I don't dislike them like you do when you're a kid, when you're just razzing your buddies all the time. And so you feel for them a little bit. And, in this golf matchup, I didn't dislike Rory or DeChambeau. I wanted DeChambeau to win because I see more of him. I didn't like Rory. He's on the internet all the time. And Rory, I didn't like the whole holier than thou golf stance I felt like he took. It went against the live golfers. And so I did want DeChambeau to win. But when I saw him pull himself off the mat a few times, to me, I respect that. And I also respect his dad worked 100 hours a week so he could hit balls. His mom worked overnight. His best friend since he was 7 is his caddy.
You gave me goosebumps.
That kind of stuff means something.
You gave me goosebumps with what you just said, and I forgot the emotions that I had, and I don't know how I did, because there is nothing better in sports when you see raw emotion like that, right? When you see the loss of a team that loses in the NCAA tournament and they're seniors, and they realize they come to that realization, this might be the last time I ever play team basketball with a level at this caliber. There's the finality of it, right? But I went from rooting against Rory the entire way to when he fell on his knees in tears for Rory because of how raw and emotional that was. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's a better moment that I can think of other than, there's some. I mean, Kirk Gibson home run. Right. That's, I'm in, kind of tears. I'm only a young kid then, but as an older guy, I'm a little bit more sensitive. Yeah. And I'm sitting there watching and I'm thinking to myself, wow, I mean, golf won yesterday. Golf won. No doubt. Golf won yesterday. Rory got his green jacket, became one of 6, but the real winner in this was golf. Well, and look, the next person who has a chance, if I'm not mistaken, again, we'll ask Charlie about this. The next person that has a chance to win the career Grand Slam is Jordan Spieth, and he'll have a chance to do it at the PGA when it's in Fresco, Texas, wherever that is. And I'm not sure if that's this year or next year, but he's the next guy. And he's kind of the forgotten guy. He's won 3. He's won 3, and the last time that Rory, if I'm not mistaken, the first year was at 14 or 15 when Rory choked. 13. I think that was when Spieth won his first one. So he's the next one on the board. Spieth won in 15, 14, or I think Spieth won in 15. Rory choked in 14 or 13, right before that. So this will be Spieth's 11th shot at it, which seems crazy because he still seems so young. I don't know if you remember how hot he was. Oh my, he was on fire for about 2 years. Calling him the next Tiger Woods. Yeah, and I said, whoa, guys. Yeah. Hold your. I remember doing a radio show, and our board op, Nate. Yeah. Nate Connolly was sitting there behind there and talking, and he was in love with Spieth. He's like, oh, he's the next Tiger. He's great. Yeah. He would wear Tiger out. I said, oh, whoa. Slow down. There's a big difference between Jordan Spieth and Tiger Woods. Let's not start putting him in that category. Yeah, and you saw what happened: injuries and kids and wives, and that happens. And so that's the one thing about DeChambeau. Not only does he swing so hard, he hits like quadruple the amount of balls on the range that these other guys. I don't know if you saw that. So Augusta. Oh yeah, he had 996 balls. 300 something were drivers, and like from a guy who has 2 back surgeries under his belt and another one probably on the way. I just watch him and I'm going, dude, he's gonna break his back in the next few years. Like, I don't see how he can continue to swing like that. And I know he has got all this scientific reasons of this, and I know all his irons, the shafts are the same, and all these things. And maybe he's got something that maybe there's not as much torque as we would think. Although when you see his ball speed and swing speed, there's a lot of torque. But every time he swings, I go, boy, that dude's back is gonna be in trouble. But anyways, it was a great tournament, and you're right, golf did win. Now they got to figure out how to get LIV and the PGA together, so these guys are playing together all the time instead of once every a month or two in these majors. Because the PGA is never going to concede to the LIV because they think that their history and their tradition is so much greater. Then you have the Saudis over here, which is another factor in this entire thing with LIV, that are paying guys exorbitant amounts of money. Just wait for this to happen. This is going to happen in other sports as well. The Saudis are going to start trying to buy up American sports. They're already, the UFC is already over there a lot. Regular boxing's over there a lot. And you're right, but they do say that they're as close to getting something done as they have been, because you say this all the time. It's like your favorite saying, but you can normally, if you follow the money, you'll see, and Saudi has the money. That's so right. The PGA, if you ask the question and the answer isn't money, ask the question again. Because the answer is always about money. Exactly. And there's no way that they're not gonna be able to figure something. I mean, even President Trump now is saying he wants to try to work a deal out. Rory has been more positive about a deal getting done soon. So if it gets us cheaper gas prices, I'm all for it. Well, and golf equipment. But we're gonna come back after this. We're gonna talk to Charlie Nance, our golf guru, America's caddy. And kind of, we gave you our thoughts, and now we'll jump into somebody who has a whole different agenda when he's watching. He loves the game of golf, and he's very smart with it. So we'll bring Charlie on right after this.
It's time to suit up. Here's your host, DJ the Suit Stout.
Welcome back to Suit Up Sports. I'm DJ the Suit Stout along with Frank Garcia. And now we welcome to the show Charlie Nance, our golf guru, America's caddy. And Charlie, I know these past 4 days are probably your favorite 4 of the sports year. So what do you think? They've heard our take. What do you think about the Masters this year?
Okay, well, look, let's get this out of the way, and we'll get back to it in a second. We have to give Rory McIlroy credit, okay? He's done what 3 people in the last 60 years have done, pulled off the career Grand Slam. And it actually sets up what could be in the stars a really, really historic summer of golf. We'll get to that in a second. Okay,
Yep.
We'll give him his props. Oh my God, what an indictment on the rest of the field at the Masters. It used to be that if you made a double bogey, just one, in 4 days of the tournament, you were cooked. You couldn't win. This guy, he makes 4 in the tournament. He makes 2 in the final round. He spotted the field 8 shots and still won. Everybody in the, you know who's hating this? Tiger Woods was sitting on his couch back in Jupiter, Florida, saying, I can barely walk. I can barely bend over. But if this guy's going to fold like a cheap suit, I'm gassing up the plane. I'm making it to Augusta. Unbelievable. The whole field needs to just be kicking themselves this morning.
I mean, but Charlie, isn't it part of that, the greatness of Rory as well? Because you're right. I mean, there's no taking away that we all felt like watching on this side, he was going to choke. But when you watch some of the great, he probably hit some of the worst shots, the one on 13 that I've ever seen with a guy that caliber, with all the room he had to make the miss and use the slope and all the things that he had going for him. He tries to land it on a 2-foot circle and knock it in, I guess. I'm not sure. Or he just clearly shanked it. But
I think, look, that shot on 13, honest to God, I would set DJ the Suit Stout up with that shot on 13, and I would have faith that the suit could put it on the green there. That may have been the worst shot I have ever seen a professional golfer at any level make. That is a stock lob wedge or 3/4 sand wedge at most. You aim 20 yards to the left of the pin, you get out of there with par. He was a micromillimeter from a pure shank. He fanned that 30 yards right of where he had to be aiming. It was atrocious. And almost as atrocious was his shot into 18, where he had 125 yards. That's a gap wedge for Rory McIlroy. Are you kidding me? And he fans it high and right again into the bunker. It's interesting on all the highlight packages that they're showing this morning. Everybody's quick to show the missed putt on 18. No one's showing that he gassed another wedge on 18. I mean, it was a double meltdown.
Well, and then he gets to the playoff, Charlie, and he has the exact same distance. And I'm thinking to myself, he just mishit this club so poorly. Is he going to try to knock down a wedge? Is he going to try to, jump on a sand wedge and hit something, closer, especially after what we saw Rose do? And Rose hit a great shot. On 18, Rose hit a great shot, and he made a great par to save to get into the playoff.
Yeah, I actually think, and Frank, you and I both know this, having playing competitive golf. If we're coming down the stretch and we're tied with somebody or we're right there with somebody, if we have the chance to hit first, we want that.
Absolutely.
And I actually think it backfired for Rose in this case, in that Rose threw in such a dart that McIlroy had no choice. He had nothing in his head but, I have got to hit a great shot here. He wasn't given the option of having things crawl in his head and fanning things out right. He had to focus. So I actually think that the strategy you want actually backfired for Rose in the playoff.
One of the things that we were all so excited about watching Sunday in particular was the fact that you've got McIlroy trying to, become a legend and get his first green jacket. And then you have DeChambeau, who is the antithesis of Rory. They don't like each other. Rory's been against Liv as he's been as boisterous about, against Liv as anybody. One guy's big muscle dude all over the internet, fun guy, has really kind of taken to social media where now he's growing his fan base. The other guy, just seems very much of a golf purist. And Rory didn't say one word to DeChambeau the entire time. Bryson said, even when he tried to talk to him, which I don't hold that against him. Tiger didn't talk to his guys either. I mean, you're in there.
He's trying to whoop his tail. I'm here to make friends. I'm here to win.
Exactly. But one of the things that I wish would have happened, as great as yesterday was, and the roller coasters and the times where
when DeChambeau was chasing him.
Yeah, if there's too bad DeChambeau couldn't have kept it where, he never could just knock on, especially after Rory double bogeys on the first hole, where everyone's going, oh, here it is. And you go back to what you talked about, where no one had ever really come back from blowing, and you're going, here he goes. I'm even texting buddies. I'm like, yeah, dude, here he comes. I hope you bet against him today, because the dude is
Choke City.
And then he kept it back on. He got it back on track, and then he fell off again. He got it back on track. But you're right. If Bryson would have been on his butt and at least taken the lead or been able to tie him, now that they're going to the tee box together, now that they're walking down the fairway together, the drama there would have been kind of interesting to see how Roy did handle that. Maybe he would have done just fine, because he ultimately he did put it together, because on the playoff hole he had a perfect hole. I mean, it was a perfect hole. But I wish Bryson would have been more in contention the later in the day.
I actually think we saw Bryson start to really leak oil late in the round on Saturday. When you play a draw and you're fighting adrenaline, what you get most of the time is coming over the top for a big snap, pull hook left. And he was pull hooking every iron in his bag, and he was able to escape on Saturday. But yesterday, I mean, it got in early, and then it just stayed there, and he was not able to control that draw. And but we saw Bryson, if he was going to fold, he was going to fold. He started to fold on Saturday.
Charlie, that was one of the things. I don't know if you heard it. I'm not sure what hole it was on, but I heard him overheard him talking to his caddy saying, see, I just can't hold off on it. Right. And that means that you're flipping the wrist and coming over the top. But, for a golfer of that caliber to not be able, he thought he had stiffed one on 15 and it landed 15 yards short in the water. Look, he just did his distance control on that golf course, and you've played it, I've played it. You have to be within 5 yards, maybe even 5 feet sometimes to hit a shot on the green. He was within 15 to 20 yards of being able to control his distance.
Yeah, that is the ultimate golf course in terms of having power, but also having to have feel. And you can't make that statement. Like, for instance, the U.S. Open is going to Oakmont. Outside of putting, you don't have to have much feel at Oakmont. You just need to bomb it. And so those are the kind of places that, I just think that Bryson, although he's done well the last couple of years, as I look back at it now, I think he's going to have trouble winning at Augusta, because he's so analytical. He's so scientific. And I just don't know if he has the feel in his hands to win at Augusta. And it just seems like you've got to have that. You've got to know that when I do this, this is what's going to happen.
What I'm gonna say this, and it sounds kind of ridiculous because he finished in the top 5. But Scotty Scheffler, the last 4 days just seemed like he just was missing something. Like, there'd be a couple holes where like he'd pull something, a magic trick out of the woods on that one great shot, I think on Saturday. But
putting.
That's it. In a word,
it's always his story, right?
Well, look, last year, at the Masters, and I guess when did he win? 22 or 23? 22. At the Masters, the winners, with the exception of Rory, they make every 4 and 5 footer seemingly over 4 days that they look at. Scheffler last year did that, and they make them most of the time they make them to save par, or they make them to make that birdie when you've come up short on the chip shot or something. And this was a year where Scotty Scheffler just didn't make the 4 and 5 footer. He's another one, though. You talk about somebody who's kicking themselves in the clubhouse after it's all over with. He's like, you mean to tell me this guy spotted me 8 shots over 4 days? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He definitely came from nowhere. Rory did. And, we talked about some of the blow ups that he had, but we also have to give him credit for some of arguably the greatest shots I've ever seen with
let's
pressure.
Talk. You and I've seen it in person. Let's talk about being behind the tree on 15. and hitting a 202-yard 7-iron with at least 30 yards of draw to 6 feet. I came out of my chair. I literally came out of my chair and said, this is one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. And then the 184 8-iron into 17 that he landed in a 2-foot circle on top of the front hump on the false front to get those. Look, like I said, we're gonna give it up to the guy.
Don't forget the shot over the tree with he hit like a driver swing with maybe a 9-iron or a pitching wedge 170 yards and almost holds it out. Earlier in the round. I mean, he had some of the most horrific shots I've ever seen for a guy that good, but he also had some of the best shots we've ever seen. And that was the roller coaster. I told DJ earlier, I said, I would love to see some sort of depiction of, the devil on one side and the angel on the other side, and the fight and the battle that was going on between those two, because he was battling that devil in those first 2-3 holes. And then that angel kind of slowly took over, and then the devil fought back. And it was an epic battle between those two.
Well, those are the demons, and they were going on in his head. But here's the scary thing, and this is what I wanted to get to. No matter how it happened, all of those demons have now been exorcised.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a guy now who's one of the, 2 or 3 most talented golfers, and there's no question of his talented golfers in the history of the planet, who's now freewheeling. He's got it. He's got nothing to hold over now. He just won the Players. He just got the monkey off his back in the Masters. The next major is at a place called Quail Hollow Club, where I don't know. He has set the course record twice.
Yep.
He
Love
owns that place. And he almost bought a house there. He almost became a member there. He loves that place.
He sure does.
People don't realize Rory is licking his chops so bad about Quail. It's unbelievable. So he's got that coming up. Oakmont is next up, and that is a bomber's golf course. And if you can keep it in the fairway at Oakmont, you can win. Dustin Johnson won at Oakmont, and he's an average putter. So Rory can win at Oakmont, and then the Open Championship, it's at Royal Portrush. It's a home game.
It's his home game
for the Grand Slam.
Yeah, no, we are set up. We could be set up. The stars could be aligned for a really, really unbelievable summer.
Yeah, that would be great, man. I mean, listen, the drama that we experienced on Sunday of this Masters, again, I mean, when Roy double bogeys the very first hole, everyone's going, oh my God, here it goes. And it's almost like watching a car wreck. Like, you don't really want to look, you're like, oh, I don't want to see this. And then you peek up, and then he stables back, he gets it back going, and then he falls again. And
there's like a Rocky Balboa versus it was a back and forth fight.
It was. And like I said, I wish Bryson would have been able to put more heat on him, because on the back nine, when Justin Rose started putting again and birdie, and I think McIlroy said was that when he went in the water on 13 was the first time he kind of looked up at the board. He said he just felt like he had to just see it, and he saw, okay, I'm still in this. Rose is coming up, but if Patrick Reed makes that putt on 17, or if Patrick Reed makes that putt, he's in the playoff with him. Which, by the way, he always plays great on that course. But yeah, I think the next 3 majors, and obviously one being right in our backyard at Quail, 3 miles down the road, always a beautiful golf course. And yeah, Rory loves that place.
Yeah. Can we get to one other thing that's driving me crazy now with sports broadcasting in general?
Yep.
And we all know Jim Nance, and we like him. Okay.
Yeah.
He has always been great to all 3 of us. I have no problem with Jim Nance except for one thing. Can you please stop writing these contrived things and saving them for the moment? It was so funny when Rory missed the 5-footer on 18. I'm thinking, Nance he was ready to say something, but he had to tuck it back in the notebook. And then, when he got it in the playoff, it was the long journey completed, his masterpiece written. And the person we have to blame for this is Al Michaels, because in 1980, when the U.S. hockey team won, people don't realize this. Do You Believe in Miracles wasn't done in the moment. It was done in post. He had hours to think about it, and he did it. And ever since then, Joe Buck is horrible about this. Costas is horrible about this. Nance is horrible about this. Quit contriving things. The most iconic calls are the ones that are just done on the natch. I mean, how many times do you hear better than most?
Yeah.
Better than most, and that was just on the
In
net.
your life.
Well,
Yeah, Vern is the most iconic guy at Augusta. You guys have been there when Vern Lundquist is just driving around in a golf cart. He
yeah,
can't go 2 feet without people going, "Yes, sir." I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
and that was just on the net. I've had it with the let's write out what we're gonna say should this guy win 3 days in advance, and then I will try to go viral with my
Well,
presentation of it.
I don't disagree, and I do think that when you're watching the Masters, Jim Nance is part of, it is part of the story, so you do kind of expect it. However, if you listen to the radio call from Mike Tirico of the same exact moment, it was outstanding. And
Tirico was great.
Tirico's is great, and I went to listen to the radio call, and again, nothing. I like Jim Nance, and I think what he's doing fits what they want him to do. He can always say this. I mean, you see this week that they were saying, like, when you're calling golf at the Masters, you're not allowed to call the driving range a driving range. You're not. It's like
a practice facility.
Yeah. So, I'm sure Nance has to be careful with what he says anyway, and he's such a class act. But Tirico on the radio call didn't seem pre-written. It seemed like it was kind of, and listen, I've done play-by-play before, and I've been a color analyst before, so I've done both. You do want to and I'm not one. I always call those guys radio geeks. Like, those guys that are really good at that, like, they'll spend all day in a hotel trying to figure out what they're going to say when so-and-so hits his milestone this or milestone that. But that's because that's their job, and they feel that that's part of what being a play-by-play guy is. So I totally get that. I've had a lot of great play-by-play guys work for me, and I've even busted their chops on that before. So I do think you're right. But I do think when it's Masters time, I mean, is there a announcer or a commentator who's more synonymous with an event than Jim Nance and the Masters? I mean,
not more.
There's not many. I mean, there's not many.
Not anymore, but the people that he took over for, Pat Summerall was synonymous with the Masters. Ken Venturi was synonymous with the Masters, and and Jim has taken over. No, I'm not taking anything away from Jim. Now, a cool piece of trivia about Tirico. So there's only been 3 guys who have pulled off the career Grand Slam in the last 60 years. Nicklaus in 66, and then you had Tiger in 2000, and you had Rory now. Tirico was on the television call for the Open Championship in 2000 at St. Andrews. He was on the radio call yesterday. So he's been on the call for 2 of the last 3 that have pulled off the career Grand Slam. That's a cool thing.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, Charlie, let's talk about, what this means for golf, because I really think yesterday golf won. And, and here's why. I started watching this tournament rooting against Rory McIlroy. I've always been, America's first. DeChambeau was the guy I wanted to see, pull through and make it down the stretch. And I wanted to see the epic heavyweight slug out, battle, again. But by the time, with the ups and the downs, the ebbs and the flows, and Bryson not playing very well, to the raw emotion after Rory makes that putt. There's not many times I can remember crying with somebody and watching, what they do, and it transferring into my body with the emotions. And, I think that's something that's really missed and really great to see in sports. We see it in the Final Four with losses, when those guys realize they've come to their last game ever. You see it in, maybe a big moment, and Kirk Gibson hits the home run and circles the bases, and, you start tearing up as a young man. But, yesterday I teared up with Rory because of, what it meant to him, but more importantly, I guess what it meant to golf, and the way that he carries himself, and the way that that moment, meant something not just for him, but for all golfers in general. I think golf won yesterday.
Well, yeah, and it's that place. The last time that we all did that was in 2019, when Tiger, you had the full circle moment of when he came off, and in 97 he hugged his father, and in 19 he hugged his son, and you had that moment, and there wasn't a dry eye in the world when that was going on. But no, I'm with you. I think Rory is an amazing talent. I've never been a Rory guy. I think there's at times there's just been a little bit too much cockiness for me on occasion. But when you saw that release, and you saw anybody who has spent I always used to tell my son, when he was on the driving range and it was raining, or when he was out there in the backyard and there was snow falling and whatever, I used to tell him that what you do when no one is watching makes all the difference when all the eyes are upon you. And only Rory McIlroy and his parents and his team really knew what all he had put in behind the scenes over the years, and what that moment of finally getting that monkey off his back meant to him. And you saw that emotional release. You saw a grown man, a polished professional athlete, literally lose control for a few seconds on the green. And you're the coldest hearted person in the world if you weren't moved by that. If you didn't go, you know what? Hats off to the guy. He may not be my guy, but my hat's off, and I'm standing up and I'm applauding him for pulling this off. And God bless him. And you're right. No, great day for the game of golf. Because, like I said, moving forward, he's won the Players, he's won the Masters. He owns Quail. I mean, we're really shaping up for a summer of speculation and really good stuff.
How nice would it be for him to win that and set up the chance? It would be huge. But two more things. One, I thought that was cool with Rory, which I didn't know, was that his caddy, Harry, didn't catch his last name, but Harry
Diamond. Harry Diamond, greatest name.
Gee, Harry Diamond, who he met at Hollywood Golf Course in Ireland. That makes no sense, but he's been his best friend since 7 years old, been on his bag the entire time. So, that guy has seen everything with Rory, good and bad. So I thought that was really cool. And then we talked about this before you came on, Charlie, but I want to get your thoughts on, again, it after watching that and after seeing how fired up people were for that final day matchup of Bryson and Rory. They've got to figure out a way to get the live guys back playing with these PGA guys more often than just these majors, because, from a TV rating standpoint, from a money standpoint, it makes too much sense to do it. It does sound like that Rory and his side of the table has been more willing to talk about it. What do you think's the latest on that, and will that happen sooner rather than later?
Before we get to live, first cool thing about Harry Diamond, I loved a caddy's job, if I could tell you this, is to show up, keep up, and shut up, okay? But like you said, there's a different relationship there. And I loved what Rory said in the presser, because Harry took a lot of heat about the U.S. Open last year.
Yeah.
He took a lot of heat. And I love what he told Rory in the locker room, or as they were signing the card. He looked at him, he said, "Lad, if they'd have told us on Thursday, this is what we would have to deal with, would you have taken it?" And, Rory said, "Well, hell yeah." And he said, "All right, LFG.
Yeah. I mean,
let's go do this, And I'm like, that's the greatest that of all the pep talks you could have ever given. That's the simplest and greatest I've ever heard in the moment. And I was like, wow, good for Harry Diamond and good for Rory for telling that. Now, you're 100% right. As we look at the final leaderboard, let's look at the percentages of golfers that are on the PGA Tour that were competing in the Masters, and the percentages of live golfers that were competing in the Masters. I think there were 8 or 9 live golfers. 2 of them are in the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So 8 or 9 out of 95, and they made up 40% of your top 5. That right there tells you that no matter how good the product is, and the product's great, until they get this settled, the product's watered down. You cannot tell me that not having Waco Neiman, not having DeChambeau, not having Koepka, not having DJ, not having Pat Reed, not having these guys out there on a week in, week out basis doesn't make a difference. It does. These guys are world-class golfers, and they would make a difference in some of these tournaments. I'm not saying Scotty Scheffler wouldn't have had a great year last year. He would have.
Yeah.
But I also think that 1 or 2 of those guys would have snuck in there and stolen a couple of tournaments too.
Yeah, no doubt. And you talked about Koepka, and you talk about some of these other guys, guys with charisma, guys with personality. Unfortunately,
Scheffler, John Rahm.
Yeah, and not even to mention Rahm, with some of his antics that he has on and flare-ups that he has on the course. But Scheffler, is a great golfer, and I'm not taking anything away from him, but he just doesn't. To me, he's not that guy. He's your buddy that you watch, and you go out there. He's a Matt Kuchar. He's going to smile all day and not say a word. Right?
Dude, he got arrested last year before a tournament.
I mean, that's probably the best thing for his career that's ever happened. But
street cred,
there's no he's got street cred
from
now.
The mean streets of Highland Park in Dallas.
Exactly.
But, who's that next guy? is it because I was talking about the story of DeChambeau the night before, just all the emotions that he had to be going through, walking down the street and going for a stroll, just blowing some steam off, and then seeing some guys out there putting and going up and introducing himself, and they made fun of him. He goes, "Hi, I'm Bryson DeChambeau." "Oh, hi, I'm Jack Nicklaus." It kind of thing. So they didn't believe who he was until he stayed out there for a little bit, and the story started going. But he's a guy that I feel like he's getting it. He's getting that charisma, and unfortunately, he's more over in the live than he is here in the States, and I think that hurts. Maybe him a little bit, but who's that next guy that is going to be coming up that we can maybe lean on for the future of golf?
Well, first, I love that story about Bryson, by the way, too. I'm glad you brought that up because I thought it was great. And two, Bryson sort of figured it out about a year and a half ago to just quit trying to be that nerd who wanted to fit in at the cool guys table and just lean into being the goofy nerd.
Mm-hmm.
And he has such a huge YouTube presence. I mean,
does.
He could probably make as much money as a YouTube golfer as he can a regular golfer, to be honest with you. So
no doubt.
You brought up the magic word charisma. That's a good question because the guys who have the charisma on the PGA Tour are starting to age a little bit. Jordan Spieth has charisma to burn. You brought Rory is a charismatic guy. Scotty is not a charismatic guy. The most talented golfer, the guy who should scare everyone on the Ryder Cup team on the American side for the next 10 to 12 years, is Ludwig Oberg, who has the personality of a wet napkin.
No charisma.
That dude can ball. I mean, he is just a stunning golfer, even though he looked like the suit playing 18.
Yes, he did. I was like, oh my God, he just quit.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
God!
He was wearing that Adidas.
If he'd have taken off his shoes, and played 18 like that, then he'd look like him.
Well, funny you
after 4 bourbons.
Funny you said, because I do when I play golf, I prefer to not wear shoes. But one of my good buddies, Justin Goff, was at Augusta years ago, walking, during the tournament, whatever, and it just felt so great outside. And he's a golf geek like you guys are. He just loves it, and he says, "Man, I'm gonna take my shoes off and just kind of enjoy the grass under my feet." And he said within like 1 minute, one of the security guards said, "You need to put your shoes back on or you have to leave." Like there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You put your shoes back on.
They want that fungus out there on that course.
But you brought up Jordan Spieth, and I think if I'm not, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I read that he's next up in line to have a chance at the career Grand Slam, and he could do it when the PGA is in Fresco, Texas, which is that next year, I believe, right? Or is it 2 years?
No. The PGA's coming up to Quail Hollow in a month.
Yeah, but I thought they said that the next chance he had.
He has a chance this month in Quail.
So I guess if he doesn't get it at Quail, then he would. I guess next year.
I mean, imagine that matchup: Spieth and McIlroy in the final pairing on Sunday.
Oh man,
that would be magic. One going for the calendar slam, one going for the career slam. Man, Dan Hicks would be writing in his notepad for weeks trying to come up with contrived phrases.
And Tiger, when he had the slam in a year, it wasn't in one year, wasn't it? Like he had 3 in one.
It was a carryover. Tiger won the 2000 U.S. Open, 2000 Open Championship, 2000 PGA, 2001 Players, and then won the Masters in 01.
Gotcha. Yeah, he had 4 consecutive or 5 consecutive, but not in the same fiscal year. Right.
Yeah. The one thing about the live guys, they've got to figure out a way to get that worked out. Except they do have to, if they do figure it out, they have to get rid of these stupid uniforms. Like Sergio Garcia, I wanted to order like large fries, a cheeseburger, and a chocolate shake. He looked like Ronald McDonald out there. I don't know who the heck picks those colors out. And then Bryson DeChambeau looks like he's wearing East Carolina garb the whole time. And I like East Carolina, but I mean, I can't tell if he's wearing East Carolina football shirt or baseball shirt.
Somebody pays me $250 million. I'm going to wear Ronald McDonald. I look like Grimace. I look like Grimace out there.
I'd much rather. I would make more sense as Grimace or the McBurgular. But man, Sergio Garcia, like either that, he was going to go paint houses. I don't know what the heck he was doing.
Oh, they're brutal. You brought up the guy who took off his shoes. We got to talk about the amateur Ballister. who took a
that
win
peed into
on
Ray's Creek.
13
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Frank, seriously, how close? People don't realize that. How close was that guy to having some dude in a green coat come out and say, "Sir, we do not urinate nor defecate anywhere on our golf course, and we're cordially inviting you to get in that van that says ice out front and be taken away."
Man,
oh my God.
I was kind of surprised we didn't hear more about it from
Well, he's
Augusta.
definitely being reprimanded over and over and over
we
again.
apologized a lot the next day after he made his comments, that were, he has charisma. let's see if he's got the game to go with it.
I mean, he goes to Arizona State, if I'm not mistaken, and there's plenty of places to pee out there, and those saguaros and cactus wide open. Nobody's going to see you, at the ping course out there in Arizona.
You just did it right in Ray's Creek. Like he'll never. Man. That'll be mentioned. That'll be something that Augusta tells the broadcasters. Don't mention that again. Don't next year.
Why do you think it wasn't mentioned? It was the number one story. After Friday, and you didn't hear a peep about it on the broadcast.
Nothing. They shut it down.
There will be no discussion of that Spaniard's faux pas.
You're right.
Oh my God.
You're right, man.
They had ice on standby.
They shut that down.
Somebody call Trump.
They shut that down quick. Well, Charlie, thank you so much for joining us, man. It was a great tournament, great Sunday for all of us. I was traveling back to having to watch it on my phone, my iPad, a TV here and there. But it sets up, like you said, Quail coming up next month, right? So we'll have to get you on before then, and maybe see if we even do the show out there. Maybe we figure out a way to sneak our way on the course. We'll wear our
I don't know if they're going to let our type out there.
I don't know.
I'm Hispanic, and I have a tendency to urinate on courses too.
Man,
the world is Frank's toilet.
If they do let us down.
Hey, listen, as a young man, there's nothing better. There's no more exhilarating feeling in the world to open urinate.
Oh man. All right. Well, Charlie, thank you for joining us, man.
Just don't do it around a school.
There you go.
Good advice.
Good talk to you, Charlie.
All right.
See you, boss.
See you,
buddy.
It's time to suit up. Here's your host, DJ the Suit Stout.
Welcome back, Suit Up Sports. I'm DJ the Suit Stout, along Frank Garcia, Big D over there on the production table. Want to thank Charlie Nance for coming on, talking Masters and more with us. Charlie loves golf, man, and knows it about as well as anybody. So we'll have him on before Quail here with PGA coming up next month. Where, like he said, if Rory wins that, man, game on for maybe the seasonal Grand Slam.
I mean, you set up. He's set up perfectly and playing as well as anybody. And now that you have that monkey off your back, it frees guys up. It could do one or two things. I mean, Rory's used to all the hype and the things that surround winning a major.
Mm-hmm.
He's done it multiple times, but now it's going to be, focusing on, can he get the real Grand Slam? And when you listen to what Charlie said, is that Quail in a month, then you're going down to Texas, and then obviously the British Open, his home turf.
Yeah, it sets up.
It sets up perfectly. And like I said this to Charlie as well. Jordan Spieth is still kind of in hunt of becoming that seventh guy now to get the Grand Slam, and he just needs the PGA. So what a potential great matchup.
Yep.
If Spieth and McIlroy are on top of their game, coming here to Quail where they both won. This time it'll be for the PGA. Will give, Rory that second leg of the Grand Slam for this year, and it'll give Jordan his final leg of the career Grand Slam.
Yep.
It could set up for, just fireworks.
Yeah,
honestly.
man, no doubt. Speaking of fireworks, there were some fireworks in Knoxville, Tennessee these past few days.
Good old Rocky Top.
Yeah, when their quarterback Nico Iamaleava, and I don't know if I said that
really
right.
good. No, you said it great.
Mean, that's all I got.
No, but
if I got it right, now he's just Nico.
That was really good.
But where they're good quarterback, he decided that he had been shopping himself around to other colleges, kind of behind Coach Heupel with Tennessee's back. Dan Lemming, the head coach at Oregon, calls Heupel and says, hey, man, I'm just going to give you a heads up, but your quarterback's out here shopping himself around. He wants, he's getting $2.4 million from Tennessee. He's wanting $4 million. Then some things come out that he even threatened to hold out during the playoffs last year when they got, I think they got beat by Ohio State, if I'm not mistaken. But that he even threatened to hold out then for more money. So it sounds like his people that he surrounds himself with, they say his father and maybe the agent have been doing this, not necessarily on his behalf per se. Obviously, the kid probably was in on some of it. Who knows? But you got to give credit to Coach Heupel at Tennessee for saying, you know what? See ya. We're giving you 2.4. You've been a problem. You're going to set out a playoff game. Now you're asking for money again. See you later. So now he's basically a free agent. Which
tells me one of two things. He wasn't that good, or he was so much of a headache that he wasn't worth, putting your entire fortune for your team on his shoulders.
Well, here's what I would say about him from a talent standpoint, right? You watch him play, he's 6'6", he can run, he's got a cannon, he is very slender. So I do think he gets banged up quite a bit, but I don't think he had the year that most people thought he would have last year playing in Josh Heupel's offense, which is high gear. Tennessee always has 3 fast receivers and running back. I mean, they're always a good offensive team.
Well, Heupel's opened up that offense significantly from where they were at, before he got there, which was 3 yards in a cloud of dust. The biggest thing that was hurting them was playing against the Tennessees, the Georgias, was Tennessee playing the Georgias, the Alabamas, the big boys in the SEC, the LSUs, when, they're facing them, they couldn't move the ball up and down the field. Now you go out and get a quarterback, you bring Heupel in, who ties himself to this quarterback. That's his guy. And you go out there and you try to compete. They lost last year to Ohio State. But they had done so much better. They had a great receiver. They had a great receiver. They have a good offense. They scored on everybody, during the regular season. It's just when it came down to it, they couldn't get over the hump and beating, the eventual national champs. So. Yeah.
And that's kind of, so it probably could be somewhere in between. Maybe Heupel thought that next man up isn't that big of a drop, and we're not giving him we're not getting held hostage. And he's already tried this twice. Again, if you believe what's been speculated out there, the schools that I've been reading.
Do you have a problem with this?
I do have a problem with it, and this is where the NIL stuff is going to have to get fixed. And I think everyone agrees on it.
What's your problem?
You have to have contracts. You cannot let a kid not just in any sport, right? You can't go work for a bank and be under contract and quit and go automatically become a free agent. You can't play in the NFL and say, you know what, I don't like my coach, so I'm going to quit and be a free agent. You can't do that in radio. You can't quit and go say, I'm going to work for the competitor. So
you don't necessarily have a problem with the kid doing it. You have a problem with the system.
I just have I don't
a lot of people are blaming the kid.
If the kid, because I also think timing is a lot. Like, I guess they were supposed to have one of their big spring practices on that day, and he showed for the dinner and the meetings ahead of time.
Because if you have a problem with him, here's my point, right? I mean, and I'm not discrediting what you said about the contracts. I do think something needs to be done, but as the system stands today, we operate within the boundaries that we're allowed, do we not? If you were allowed to do that in radio and you had an opportunity to go to somewhere else because you just came out with great ratings and somebody was going to offer you more money, would you not jump all over that for your family? Absolutely you would.
Yeah.
And so would everybody else. So the problem is this.
To me, it's more about, I guess, timing. So at some point, though, with all that you just said, at some point, you're going to tell me that not everybody has this, and you're right, which is sad. But at some point, you have to also have loyalty to your teammates and your coaching staff. Just my opinion, because to me, that's what being. Well, they're giving him $2.4 million. Okay. That's pretty damn loyal.
Okay, great. He's earned that. They're making 10.
Okay, but not just because of him. Like we all agreed he had an okay year.
They're not giving him that. He's making that for the university. He's not. They're not just being gracious. Hey, we're going to give you $2.4 million out of our kindness. They're giving him $2.4 million because he's generating income on his name and his image and his likeness. They're making money on him. They're not. No doubt. They're not giving him anything.
No doubt. But with all that being said, he's had. They lost in the playoffs. What, in January?
Yeah.
So February, March, April,
December, January, right around there.
Yeah. So whenever the playoffs he's had 3.5 months to, if he wanted to enter the portal, which he didn't, by the way. He was just sniffing around, which again, that's a problem, right? Like if you're going to talk to other teams, you enter the portal. That's what you do. He had not entered the portal and had his people talking to these other teams behind his coach's back, not even entering the portal yet. So if he found out that UCLA says, okay, we got $4 million for you, then he enters the portal and then he leaves. So let me ask you a question. Right. I will say this: it definitely has more to do with the system that's in place than it does.
I'm going to point something out. Right, we're upset about this guy. I know a lot of people are, because maybe they're Tennessee fans and the way it went about it, and they're saying that he's not loyal. He transferred. Screw him. He's a terrible person. Things like that. He
threatened to sit in the playoff game.
Let me give you a list of other guys that have done exactly the same thing, and nobody's coming down on them. Will Howard transferred. Shador Sanders transfer, Cam Ward transfer, Quinn Ewers transfer, Caleb Williams transfer, Jaden Daniels transfer, Bo Nix transferred, Justin Fields transferred, Joe Burrow transferred. Nobody's coming down on those guys for the same exact thing that they're hounding this guy. The difference is that it wasn't publicized.
There's one difference. When they transferred, every one of the ones you just named did it. Shador was a little late because he went with his father when he went from Jackson State to Colorado. But all the other guys, when they did it soon thereafter the season was over, so that they would be with their new team, so they would be in camp with their new team. They would be back. They would be. This guy's doing it when they're getting ready to start their spring training. So my point is, if he threatened to sit out in the playoffs, which a lot of people say he did, he already knew that he wanted more money. So from that
who doesn't?
Okay. So from that point, enter the portal. See what's out there. I have no problem with it.
I mean,
but why wait now until
because he wants to be able to have his cake and eat it too, just like most people would. You wouldn't do that. We've all taken that opportunity when we have under contract for a certain person or a certain organization, whether it's the radio station, whether it's a team or whatever it is, and have conversations outside of that. He's not doing anything different than everybody else does. The difference is he got caught. He got told on. None of these other guys, I guarantee he's not the only guy doing that, right?
No, you're right. I would. There's definitely other guys doing it.
Especially in a game. Let's call this a game of the transfer portal where there's no boundaries or no rules. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden we want to create these boundaries and rules for this kid.
Well, no, I don't think it's about this kid. I think what people are saying about it is just the way that he went about it. The guys that you just named before, Joe Burrow transferred from Ohio State to LSU because he wasn't going to start at Ohio State and he would start at LSU. And he did it right when the season was over. So did, what's his name?
Shador Sanders, Will Howard.
Howard was at Kansas State, had a really good year. Well, when
Jaden Daniels, Quinn Ewers, Cam Ward.
Jaden Daniels was at Arizona State under Herm Edwards. Herm Edwards goes, he transfers to LSU. Bo Nix, I think, played at Auburn, Oregon. I want to say one other, it seemed like, but definitely Auburn and Oregon. So, but those guys transferred when the season was over and they got to their new school as soon as they could and they got in the system. My point is just, if this dude knew that he didn't think he was getting paid enough and the playoffs to the where he threatened to sit out, why not, when you lose to Ohio State, enter the portal? See what's out there.
Because I still have a job and I'm making $2.4 million. Why compromise that and say I'm going to be done here and not allow myself to go out and see what's available? Well, I still have contract.
That's what the portal does. But that doesn't cut off his money.
But you've done that before as well. When you have an income coming in a job, you're going to go look and see what is out there, but you're not going to tell your employer because they'd fire you on the spot. You're going to go out there and do the same thing that he did. And I don't even know if he did it personally. He might have had other people out there putting feelers out there to see. Hopefully, maybe his thought was, maybe Tennessee will give me more, right? He was using it as leverage.
Well, they did go back to them and ask Tennessee for $4 million, and Tennessee said, see you later.
Okay, so
knowing that he had been doing that, and then when he asked for that, they said, hit the road.
Well, the only time it's going to hurt now is that if nobody else touches this kid, which you think is going to be the case? Absolutely not.
He'll have a job within
He's going to get a raise. He's going to get a raise. Probably. It might not be at Tennessee. It's definitely not going to be at Tennessee. Now, Heupel said, no, thank you. But it could be at USC. It could be at Oregon. It could be at Washington State. It could be at Cal. It could be at UCLA.
If he goes to Oregon, that makes the story a lot crazier. That the Oregon coach is the one that called Heupel to let him know what the guy was doing. But the three schools that he's been tied to as of this morning, number one is Southern Cal, who you named. Number two,
he's from California, by the way.
Number two, UCLA.
Yep.
A California school. And number three, Notre Dame.
Yep.
And Notre Dame has three good quarterbacks on their roster, but They do. But the last 2 years they brought in guys. So they have Riley Leonard.
So they're not that good.
No, they weren't good enough. They were red shirts.
If they were good enough, they would have beat out Riley Leonard.
Well, Steve Angeli, the guy that is in line to start for them this year, is a junior. But his sophomore year, he started the bowl game because Sam, the quarterback that was from Wake Forest, transferred. Sam.
Will Howard.
No, the Notre Dame quarterback that came from Wake Forest. The guy
yeah. I know.
Sam Hartman.
Sam Hartman. That's right. That's right.
So he elected not to play in the bowl game because he was getting ready for the NFL draft. So Angeli, as a freshman at the time, won the MVP of the bowl game, threw for like 400 yards.
But he didn't beat him out.
He didn't beat Riley Leonard out because Riley Leonard, I think came in as a senior with great leadership, the ability to run. This guy, maybe Notre Dame was messing with him. Maybe they will sign him. What I'm saying though is there's no way he's not going to get a job. 100% he will. You don't think right now that, and I don't know is he going to make more than what he was making at Tennessee? Yeah, he will now. I'm sure he will
because he's a free agent,
but also because
that's what free agents do.
If you're a college, okay, and you're right.
So all I'm saying is
the system is definitely more at fault than anything else.
That's all
I will agree with you.
That's all I'm saying.
And so, but could he have entered the portal and done the same thing? Yes. If he knew he wanted more money after losing the national championship, why didn't he address it then? I just think to wait this long is that's what I don't like about it. But is he going to get paid more money? I'd be willing to bet you. I mean, I haven't went through everybody's roster to see what schools are out there that really need a quarterback. Who's Alabama's quarterback this year?
When the kid from Georgia goes down to South Beach and is going to make $4 million, he thinks to himself, I'm at Tennessee. I'm pretty dang good myself. I'm going to be better than that guy. I'm 6'6". I'm 220 pounds. I have a higher upside. I have a better arm, and I should be making more money because of that. 2.4 is not a going rate for a starting caliber quarterback of his ilk. And recognizing that as an athlete, there's nothing wrong with that. I got underpaid last year as a sophomore or what I was, coming into Tennessee. They got the bargain. All I'm wanting is a raise so that I can be on par with the other free agents that are out there.
Then just what I would say is do it the right way, enter the portal. Don't do it behind the back in the little closed dark rooms, which again, I'm not naive enough to sit here and say that doesn't happen. I'm sure it happens, and if he didn't get called out by that coach of Oregon, then who knows how it would have panned out. So, the system is definitely in need of repair.
I don't disagree with that whatsoever.
I also don't disagree with Heupel telling him get the heck out of here because you're obviously not the kind of teammate that I want as the leader of my team as quarterback. And Heupel, a former Heisman Trophy winner, I do believe, but definitely was a good quarterback.
Oklahoma.
Yep. And so that if he had to go get $1.6 million to keep this kid, doggone well he could call any of these boosters at Tennessee. They got a ton of money and say, dude, give me the 1.6. We can't lose him. He obviously felt that it was more of a negative than a positive.
So here's what's happening.
You know who might be on the phone with him? You don't think old 26-year-old girlfriend Bill Belichick down there at the Tar Heels ain't knocking on his GM's door going, hey, look, man, dude, I know we only got $20 million for this season, but come on. Yeah, let's go. I mean, we want to make a dent this year. Let's go. NC State, same time. I mean, he's not going to have he's going to have a long line of suitors. You're right, and he's going to get a raise.
He was a starting quarterback for University of Tennessee, where these other guys were backups for Notre Dame, backups for Ohio State, and other guys beat them out. To me, that tells me that either one, you're not ready, you could grow up as a player, no doubt about it. You can get better, but the reason why these other guys were brought in is because they didn't trust you, and they saw these other tangibles that they saw in these other quarterbacks to bring in. Those tangibles don't just change all of a sudden unless you get bigger, unless you get faster, unless you get stronger,
or when you're a freshman and you sit out,
you mature, more, right? But give me a guy with playing time over a guy that I don't know anything about sitting on the bench.
Listen, that's why the portal is so crazy, because you're right. It makes a coach's job a lot easier when he can go watch tape of him playing in college and get reports on how he does in school and this and that, as opposed to getting a 5-star kid out of high school where you have no idea how they're going to handle it. I will say this about just Notre Dame in particular. I'd be very surprised to see Notre Dame in on him. And the reason I would say that is this: Marcus Freeman, their head coach, is a really big teammate, leadership, do things the right way guy. Just the way that this kid handled this. Again, it's the system more than it's
let me ask you this.
I don't think he would fit what Marcus Freeman is looking for.
I don't know.
I would be surprised.
I don't know.
I think what's his name at Southern Cal. I think he'd be all over it. UCLA needs something. I mean, they stink in football. So, and I'm sure they've got money being at UCLA. Southern Cal, has money. But I'd be more interested to see like some of these SEC teams. Like,
let me say this before we go ahead and make these blanket statements about kids' characters that we have no idea about. Right. A lot of times in past, we would tie character to the individual because they're responsible for it. Because of what's taking place right now and the way that this is panning out to me, I could very easily see dad, mom, cousin, handler stepping in and seeing what's available to try to gain favor for this kid so that they could get a little piece of the pie, right? Mm-hmm. That's what, is going to be a challenge, for a lot of these, players coming in because there's no contracts. You're going to have people outside knocking on doors to see what's available. Is that kid's fault? I don't know. Ultimately, he's that brand, and he has to put a stop to that if it's going on. But when you're marrying and tying yourself to an athlete without these contracts, it seems like if this is going to continue, because it's not going to be the first time, it's not the only time that's happened. These things happen a lot more than is being reported. Right, it's just not somebody of this level of play at a high-profile university of Tennessee that's doing that. Right, the guy was a starter, a good system, had a lot of upside going in. Tennessee was counting on him this year. It screwed Tennessee because now they have to go find somebody else that they're unsure of. They knew what they had with this guy. So that being said, is that when you tie yourself to these athletes now, you're tying yourself to their camps. Right.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
It's like in baseball, DJ, when we went and built the team, we're not just looking at the kid. This kid might be a good kid, right? But his parents are a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Right. His mom is always going to complain, cry. His dad is always going to think he's not getting enough playing time. You're being too hard on him. And they're always going to be in your ear. That's a headache for you as a coach, is
100%.
it not? No different. Right. So the same thing applies with these kids, is that you're marrying their families now.
Well, that's exactly the point I was going to make. So it may not just be this kid's character. Maybe he has great character. I mean, like I said, you hear some rumors, but regardless, but there's no question that his father and his agent were working the back room.
We don't know who it was.
Well, no, they've said the father.
Yeah.
Well, listen.
Are you going to do that for your son? Are you going to go to bat for your son if he's making $2 million? You think he's 100%? Get caught. That's what you do.
Yeah.
You try not to get caught.
I want to beat Oregon's butt every time we play him now.
But get caught is what the only thing wrong here is he got caught.
Well, no, but what I would do if I was in that situation, I would go talk to the coach of the team at Tennessee in this instance. I would tell him that all these other quarterbacks are making $4 million and my son's making 2.4. We wanted this to be a fair deal.
You don't think that conversation was there?
Maybe it did, but then I would say, regardless of if they said no, we're not giving you 4, we can't get 4, whatever that answer was. If it wasn't the answer I wanted, which would have been okay, we'll give you $4 million. Then I would have said, okay, well, we are going to just test the market. Doesn't mean we're going to leave, but I'm going to enter the portal and I'm just going to see what's out there.
You would have rather have him be more upfront and taking responsibility for what he was going to do, not do it behind closed doors.
No doubt.
Have you done that? Would you go? Let me ask you this. Hold on. If you were working for CBS, okay, and you were the main guy, the program director for the entire cluster, right, and you were in your final year of your contract, and you knew that there was other opportunities out there, would you tell them that you're going to go look, or would you just go look and do it behind closed doors? Because the answer is you'd look behind closed doors, because that's what you would get fired on the spot if you told them you're going to go look elsewhere.
Well, but here's what I'll tell you on that, and I can give you an example. But number one, in most contracts, and again, these guys don't have contracts,
right? So that's the problem.
This is a problem. But in most contracts, and in mine, in this case, when I was in radio, there was a period of time where you were allowed to talk to competition. I think it was like a 2-month period or something before your contract was up.
There was parameters.
Yeah.
What's the parameters in college football?
Well, there's none. That's what I'm saying. But you just asked me. I told you how I would have handled it. I would have went to the coach and said, okay, well, we're going to enter the portal to see what's out there. It doesn't mean we're leaving, but we are going to see.
If there wasn't, you did that because there was parameters, because you were forced to do that. If you weren't forced to do that, there would be a lot more opportunity for you to do that whenever you wanted,
Oh,
which is what these kids are
and that's the
with.
biggest problem. There's no fence around it.
Now we can get to the crux of the issue. It's not the kid's fault; it's the system's fault.
And I'll give even to go further on that. And again, it comes back to contracts, and that's why I think that's ultimately the answer. But in my career, probably my second or third contract that I signed with CBS, that 2-month grace period where you are allowed to talk without any infractions on either side. Mm-hmm. I was offered a job to run a big country radio station.
Mm-hmm. I remember
the Atlanta Braves radio network. Yep. It was a big job.
You'd have to move your entire family.
Have to move to Atlanta, and the boys were young then or whatever. But I took the job. The money was just so much more. I was staying in the South. I was 3.5, 4 hours down the road. I had been into Atlanta enough to know enough to be dangerous about what areas I liked, didn't like, things like that. So I took the job, and when I went and told my boss at the time that I was taking the job, he wasn't happy, obviously. But in my contract, they had a right to cease and desist it, but they had to match the deal. So in my instance, they sent me a cease and desist. They sent me the letter. I couldn't believe it. I walked back in. I'm like, dude, what's this? And he goes, well, they're not going to let you go. And so we negotiated a new contract that ended up being the best of both worlds, because I didn't want to leave, and it worked out. But I did it through the parameters of what I was allowed to do. Whereas, you're right. With Porter right now,
that's essentially what he tried to do. He's tried to strong arm Tennessee, right, into giving him more money, right, and gaining the advantage and the leverage when it came to this battle. But right? That's something that.
But he really didn't have to. He really didn't have to even do that, because here's the deal: if he didn't talk to Heupel, if he just entered the portal after they lost to Ohio State, he enters the portal.
Well, he's given up the 2.4.
Not until he signed somewhere else.
You're right, but who's to say Heupel wouldn't have just said, be done with you anyways?
They may, but he's getting. A team's giving him 2.4. He ain't going down.
Okay, so I don't disagree, but he wants to be in Tennessee. And he wants to see if he can get more money.
Okay, fine. Then go to the coach, tell him that. And if the coach goes, well, look, I don't know if we can get you that. If you want to enter the portal with a do not contact tag, whatever the case may be, go find out. And if you can get it, we'll talk then. In the meantime, I'll go back and see if I can get somebody. Like, to me, I think that's how you do it. And then he enters the portal, whatever. Look, I didn't even think about how much some of these other quarterbacks are making. I'll give you another good example. The quarterback that Duke got this year, they just brought him in from Tulane, and I want to say he's getting and it is a 2-year deal. So if Duke was smart, it's a 2-year deal, $4 million a year. Mm-hmm. So if this kid
$4 million a year,
I think so,
or 3.2, whatever it is, it's more than 2.4.
It's more than what this kid would get. I want to say it's an $8 million deal, so I think it's 4 each year. The kid's a really good quarterback too, and he's great at Tulane. This kid, 5-star. We 6'6", 220 pounds. He has all
playing at Tennessee in a system that was, that you did pretty well in. I mean, the kid, he wasn't perfect, but he has a ton of upside.
No doubt.
He was a 5-star kid. He's 20 years old. He's going to be a junior going into his junior year, and has an opportunity to really grow and elevate himself after having played an entire season under Heupel.
And here's what gets me too about the portal and the lack of.
Is he better than the kid is he better than the kid at Duke? Yes.
Last year, the kid at Duke,
the one that got the contract.
Yeah, no, the one that they signed. I think he was player of the year in that conference. He had a crazy great year. Tulane, if you remember, I think made a bowl game, whooped somebody's butt. Like, he had a really good year. This kid last year, and I've got some Tennessee friends that would agree. They almost thought he was a little disappointing because he was so inconsistent. And they thought that with Josh Heupel's offense, he would just light it up, bing, 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 bing. And last year was the first year that he started every game. Remember, the year before that, they had Milton, who got drafted by the Patriots.
He was the Citrus Bowl MVP, by the way.
Yeah, in 24.
Last year.
So that would have been their first playoff game?
No, the Citrus Bowl MVP. That would have been in January. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was their first game, I guess, of the playoffs against who
I don't remember. Was Tennessee in the playoffs?
Yeah, they lost to Ohio State, I think. But I forget who that was, what was in. But like I said, I think they felt he was just a little inconsistent. And so now I bet you if I asked them, do you want to lose him? And do you think the guy that's going to take his place is better? They would say, no, I don't want to lose him. Heupel must have good confidence. But here's the thing that gets me even more than all that is now the domino effect that gets created. Because let's say he goes to Southern Cal. Well, there's a kid that's been busting his butt at Southern Cal for the last 6 months who now just got unseated. And then, okay, that's life. That's the world we live in. And so now that kid's like, I'm out of here. And then he goes to this school, and then that school, same thing. There was a kid that's been the quarterback there, busting his butt, who now doesn't have a job. And so when you look at the personal aspect,
where did this kid go? He went to Vanderbilt. That you said the other kid? No, Tennessee.
No, you talking about the kid that went to Duke?
Yeah,
he played for Tulane.
Okay, Tulane. Sorry.
I didn't. And Tulane's coach just took a big job too, and so
so the kid. So your point is that it's going to unseat somebody else.
And on down, and that's the thing also that bothers me about not having any structure is that.
So you want DEI? You want DEI?
No, I don't want DEI. No, I don't want that. But
you want everybody to have a job just because they
don't want that.
But do we want the best person available to have the job?
I don't want that. What I want is this. I want it there to be just like hunting season. There's a time when you can hunt and there's a time when you can't. In free agency, when you're in the NFL, there's a time you can talk to free agents. There's a time you can sign them, and there's a time that they want. So
when there's rules in place, I'll follow those rules.
Well, that's it. That's what's driving me crazy about the portal is put some rules in place. So at least now we understand that there's a time period when you can be in the portal. There's a time period when you can leave the portal. There's a time period, this and that. Sign contracts, so you're not having to worry about this every year, because at the end of the day, fans, if you ask fans the number one complaint about the portal, one's obviously fan now has experienced that. You can't be a fan of a school. I mean, look at even Washington Huskies 2 years ago.
Why were you not upset like this about the system when what's the kid's name from Georgia that's down in Florida right now making $4 million a year?
Because he did it within the system. Like I said, if you're going to do it,
but the kids that he's he's taking his place, he's not going to have a job to play.
Well, again, remember, I'm not feeling sorry for those guys under the right circumstance. What I'm saying is, if now you're starting summer games and you put all this work in, there should be a time period where you, as a coach, know your player is not going to bail on you. And there should also be a time period where this is my roster. I don't disagree with that. Like, here's my roster. And so this kid, you got the money, you got the contract, you're my quarterback. But in this window, if you want to get in the portal, you can. But once this window closes, you're on my team or you don't play this year. And I just think that's the way it's got to be, because, like I said, the personal side of that is
why do you think Nick Saban stepped out of coaching college football?
Same reason.
For exactly what you just said.
Yeah, and it's the same thing Bruce Pearl said about how people don't think about, when we were talking about the portal opening during March Madness, and was the benefit for teams that weren't in the tournament because they could get to work on these guys, and how it kind of hurt the players that were in the tournament because they didn't want to enter the portal while their team's making a run. And really only one kid did it, and Pippen from Michigan. Mm-hmm. Now a bunch of them have done it. But my point is, those coaches said what people don't understand is what it does to these kids. So Bruce Pearl didn't mind them opening it when they did, because he said
I took advantage of it.
Well, he goes, I wouldn't want my son having to sit there and wait a whole nother month and a half to be able to figure out where his plans were next year. I would let him get on with his life. So I do think there is the personal aspect of it, but
that's why there has to be rules in place. Let's stop blaming. All I'm saying, I'm not disagreeing with your theory and your concept of having rules and structure in place. It's good for any reason, right?
Yeah.
It's good for life. It's good for society. We have to have structure to live by. We have to have rules to stand by. We have to have structure, or else we have anarchy and chaos, right? That's not the way we can't make up rules as we go, because this is what starts happening, mm-hmm. right? You start losing the ability to be able to plan, and everything just becomes fly by the seat of your pants. So I'm not disagreeing with you whatsoever when it comes to that. But what I'm having a problem with is all the people that are blaming these kids, right, for going out there and taking advantage of an opportunity that exists without the rules. Right. Eventually, these types of things have to happen, unfortunately, so that the rules can come into play. But the errors, it's like running a business. That first year, you're going to make a lot of mistakes if you've never run a business before. Right. You have to learn from those mistakes. And that's what they're doing. They're running a completely different business model with this portal. They don't know what they don't know yet. They can try to see what the problems might be, but until they come up, there's always going to be a new one. Mm-hmm. Right. So, and then once they do, there's that new rule put in place. It's the same thing in the NFL or NBA. The reason why they have these owners meetings is so that they can address the tush push. They can address this situation with timeouts or with replay. Right? There's reasons why they have these meetings, so they can stay ahead of the what ifs and make it a fair playing field for everybody, in particular the players it's good for them, right? It's good for and it's not just the top tier players that we're talking about. It's also good for the second tier players that might have a job going in 1 week, and all of a sudden transfer comes in. I no longer have a job, and now I'm sitting here on my thumbs because I thought I was going to be the starting quarterback here. So there's going to be chaos, and it's not the kid's fault.
Well, I think the reason that this kid is getting it more than anyone else is just because all the other kids that you named, they did what they were supposed to do. They entered the portal and they negotiated a new place to go, and they went there. This kid,
we don't know when they did that though.
Well,
we don't know.
No, they all. I mean, everyone,
they just didn't get caught.
Well,
I don't think I don't. You're not going to convince me 1 second that every one of these kids just are so good and holy and wholesome.
No. Okay.
There's going to be some guys out there that are testing waters, knocking on doors with their family or with their handlers to see what's available, especially all these transfers when you're talking top tier, so they can get more money.
There's no question that this has happened. No doubt. I agree with you. But even when that has happened, let's assume it did with some of those guys you mentioned even, they still enter the portal. And then they transfer.
Well, that's what this guy's going to have to do.
Well, now he does, but instead of waiting this long, having your dad make phone calls, but because you mentioned this too,
don't know
it's going to hurt this.
He might not be having his dad make those phone calls. Dad might be doing that unbeknownst to him.
Well, maybe, but either way, like you said, when you're another team and you're looking to bring this kid in there, you're not just looking at him, you're looking at the camp, and that's why I was saying I don't see this scenario being the kind of player that Marcus Freeman would want. Now, you remember Calvin Sampson, even the great coach at Houston, we just watched,
old school wants to bring guys through his system and build them up.
And what his number one thing he said is I don't ever worry about it when we get in tough situations because I don't recruit a kid who doesn't have great character and doesn't have great parents. So there's no doubt that when somebody hears about that dad you were talking about, and we both had it. I remember coaching baseball, man. I had a mom that had to bring her son to dang on hot dog at every game, like in the third inning, and it would drive me crazy. And I finally said, listen, we're not eating during the game. We've got sunflower seeds. We got bubble gum. You're not bringing him hot dogs and stuff where he's getting chili all over his uniform and he's not paying attention. And her man, she was not happy about that. But guess what? He never had another hot dog in there or he wasn't going to play for me. So
and that kid probably wasn't the most talented kid on the team. If the kid is the most talented team and your best pitcher, you might have a different conversation. And it might be something like, hey, Mom, listen, can we wait until the hot dogs come out? And, it sets a bad example. You're not going to be so demonstrative and saying and setting rules if the kid isn't your best player.
I'll tell you who the kid is after the show. And yeah, he was one of our really good players, but he was softer than others. So we definitely had to handle him in a certain way, but not eating.
And you were also talking about 8, 9-year-old kids,
right? But
19-year-old.
Well, good Lord, some of these 19-year-old dudes have been treated like divas since they were 5 years old,
and that's the problem.
And,
that's a whole different conversation on entitlement and people patting you on the back, feeding you a silver spoon, right? The YMCA mentality, and I think even you were kind of leaning towards that. Well, what about these other kids that are going to be left behind? This is a dog eat dog world. And unless you approach it that way, you are going to get eaten up, chewed up, and spitting out. You would love to think that you could do everything by the book and be nice and be respectful and do it. And you can do those to the most part. There's no doubt about that. Character still matters, when it comes to these things. But to think that, if I'm playing you and you're my best friend, I'm not trying to whoop your ass. I'm not going to say a word to you when we're playing. Afterwards, we can be buddy-buddy. But as competition goes, you learn at a young age that I'm going to take you out. I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to embarrass you. I'm going to bury you. I'm going to impose my will on you. And I love you, but this is what I have to do because this is the sport we chose.
And I don't have. And again, I'm not feeling bad for those kids who are now going to get their job. What I'm saying is, what I do feel bad for them is from the standpoint of, this instance is coming out of right field where this kid is probably already paid for his apartment for next year. He's done this. He knows where he's living. Maybe he got his classes already. He's been doing this and that. And all I'm saying is, I have no problem with competition. If you're the quarterback,
life happens, buddy.
I get it. But in this situation, it should be there should be a time period when it's allowed. You can't let it happen. I mean, because let me ask you this question.
I'm not arguing.
And I do wonder about this.
Arguing that.
This has got to be a rule, right? So if this is a rule, why isn't not expanded on?
So hold on.
Let me just finish my points. I'm gonna forget. If it's the third or fourth game of the season, okay, And I remember last year, a couple players did this. They just quit during the middle of the season. Some said it's because they don't want to get hurt for the draft. Some said
Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, we did at the bowl game. We had players last year that did like after 4 games in the year.
They knew they were going to be top picks. And,
or they just didn't like what was happening. One of the defensive tackles, I think now is Notre Dame. My point is,
they did in the NFL too, by the way.
They what?
With the receiver or the linebacker in the NFL didn't get.
For San Francisco.
Yep.
So if these guys that quit during the middle of the year, though, they weren't allowed to then go to a different team. So obviously that's a rule. So if you're the quarterback for Tennessee, you can't quit and then next week go play for Alabama, right? So obviously there's a rule there. So why are they so stupid to where they don't make that rule cover more ground to where it protects these universities so that it does create a 2-year contract for a kid, or it does let you at least know that this is when turbulence is going to happen. So kids, get ready. If I can get the number 1 quarterback and you're number 7, buddy, I'm taking the number 1 quarterback. So you can stay here and fight for that job, or I get it. If you want to go to the portal and go somewhere else, you can do that too. To me, there should just be a window of time when they can do that. I don't know what that window is.
I've made the argument. If you're a starting caliber player at any position, and there's an opportunity for you to make money, you should enter the portal every single year. Every single year, you're a free agent, and you should enter the portal if you're a starter quality player, because it's going to have people fighting for your services so that they can be better, right? If you're a top guy in particular, especially a quarterback at a University of Tennessee or Oregon, and you have an opportunity to go get more money, significantly more money, why wouldn't you enter the portal every single year? Now, once you get up to the top and you feel like you're near the top, then, entering the portal may not be as advantageous as leaving the big amount of money you have, but 2.4, when you're seeing everybody around you getting 4.5, and that's the market, and I'm getting the 2.4, I'm underpaid at the University of Tennessee as a starting quarterback, as a guy coming into my 3rd year, as a starter for a coach that I've been with. I'm being loyal to them. Where's their loyalty to me? All I want is a raise, coach. I see what everybody else is getting. Why can't I get that raise and you be respectful to me for my services? I've given my heart and soul to you for these 2 years. Where's mine when I come back? Because my future is not guaranteed. You're making $10 million a year as a coach. I'm making 2. That's good, but I could be making 4. That's better. Yeah. Right. So why wouldn't I do that?
Well, I don't disagree with that. I just think that they should be able to do that. I just think that by putting in contracts and putting in a time period when you can do it, it will slow a lot of it down. Here's another thing. If you're my son and you're a sophomore, right, and we go to so-and-so school and you sign a 2-year deal, but you have a crappy first year, you still got that second year. The school can't screw you either. No, I'm talking about in college. So, that's why I think the contracts will help this a lot.
No. I think you're mistaken. I don't know if people understand what scholarship actually equals.
No, I'm saying that the money you're getting, NIL money. So if you're my son and they're going to give you $6 million over 2 years.
Yep.
And the first, $3 million. And the first year, you throw 8. Well, the first year, you throw 18 interceptions. The school can't cut you for that second year either. It goes both ways. It protects the player and the school. So to me, it just makes so much sense to do that and to have a window of time when you can do it. I mean, we saw the basketball portal, how it had over 1,100 people in 72 hours.
I had this argument 15 years ago on the radio when it came to players and agents in the NBA. Let it be the Wild West, right? Let these agents give these guys as much money as they want. Kind of what they're doing now with the NIL, right? Mm-hmm. Allow them to be on the hook, because there's going to be a time when it becomes diminishing returns where I go give this guy $10 million and he turns out to be a bust. And now I'm saying to myself, you've just bankrupt me.
Yep.
I'm not going to take that risk if you're going to bankrupt me if I'm going to give you that amount of money.
Yep.
Or sometimes you might. But that's the risk. At least you know where the risk is at.
Yeah.
The same thing applies with these schools when they give that NIL money to these players, right? For a year even. We're going to make you who's to say that kid isn't just being done? He's tired of football.
Exactly.
When he gets hurt and you still have to pay him $4 million.
Well, that's it. And that's why I think about putting some of these rules that we talk about in place, it at least covers the player and the school. There's certain situations where the player gets hurt and he's out and he had another year on his deal, he's getting paid. Or maybe there's an out where they work out a settlement, whatever the case may be, he's at least covered. Same with the school. So the
legalities
school's
is what
covered from him not leaving after that first year because he had a great year and trying to go get $3 more million, and you had a contract for $4 million. So it protects both sides. The receiver, who's the freshman receiver number 4 for Ohio State?
Oh yeah, Smith.
I mean, just Jeremiah Smith. Unbelievable. Smith. He didn't enter the portal this year, and I forget what he's getting.
They gave him $4 million.
But you don't think somebody gave him more than that? I guarantee you somebody would. But he must have said, and this is what I'm saying. A lot of it comes from your background too.
Hold on. He's a good example, by the way.
He would have gotten loaded up.
Hold on. He may have not entered, but you don't think for 1 second that there was other teams offering.
I would think so, but I got to believe that
we're going to give you. They're giving you 4. We're going to give you 4.5, or they're going to give you 4.5. We're going to give you 5. If you come here to play at the University of Texas with Manning, if you come here and play for, Alabama, if you come here and play for one, and it's going to have to be a blue blood school, right? With they're making all the money. Texas is one of those. Notre Dame. You don't think these schools came knocking on the door and say we're going to give you a little bit more?
I mean, I would think I would think so. He didn't enter the portal, so we won't know. So and again, I'm not naive enough to think that maybe they didn't.
The handlers,
but my point
just didn't get caught.
But my point is, if he put himself, give you another. If Cooper Flagg entered the portal today, he would get paid as much money as he wanted to get paid. Duke probably would not even be able to afford to pay him. I'm going to tell you
the only reason Oregon's coach, and to me, it's a bitch move.
Well, that was part of what I was going to ask you about.
It's a bitch move. It's a bitch move from Oregon. You know why? Because now he's going to have to face that kid twice at USC. Even though they're in different divisions, but he's going to have to play him. Right?
I think the story was that UCLA was a school that he was getting far down the road with.
Yeah.
And so it would make sense that he goes, hey, man, I don't want him playing for the
That's right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to call on tattletale on this kid and call them out. That right there, my friend, is the biggest difference, and it has been for years and years and years when it comes to behind the doors with when the ACC, the Pac-12, the Big Ten, any other conference versus the SEC. The SEC had these deals the entire time. You know what? If you went to Georgia and you beat me out of Alabama, you know what I'm going to say as Nick Saban? Hey, buddy. You got me good this time. You gave him more money. Hey, great deal, right? You really snuck us. But I ain't telling the NCAA. Yeah. I'm not going to tell anybody else.
Start a whole fire drill,
because it starts the fire drill and opens up Pandora's box to come do the investigations on the conference. The reason why the SEC has been able to be a step above everybody else is because they have coaches in there. It's a good old boy system that is going to be word of mouth, and it's kind of the known thing. What's the word I'm looking for? It's like the way they do business.
Yeah.
It's
cost of doing business.
Yeah. It's the cost of doing business that you're going to get that guy. Good job this time, but I'm going to get you next one. Yeah. I'm going to offer you a little bit more. And I'm going to steal one from you.
There are a lot of stories that you and I both know from players who had great college careers and SEC or even some other conferences that were very well compensated for it.
I know this for a fact that these things happen.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, we've had players tell us about it. I mean, we've also had players get busted for it with whether it be Reggie Bush or whoever down the road. So you're right. And now it's legal to do it.
It's a bitch move by the University of Oregon and their head coach, in my opinion, that either one of this kid and didn't get him, and he went down the road to UCLA or USC, or he's going to go to another competitor that he's going to have to face, right? So he's going to tell the world about it. He's going to blow the whistle.
Well, I may call the coach directly.
He's going to blow the whistle.
I don't know if they had a relationship before, but I did think that was because you're right. If it was inside the SEC, I don't think they're saying a word on that. And matter of fact, I guarantee you that other coaches in the SEC knew this dude was shopping him around and didn't say a word because they want him out of there.
That's right.
So it the whole portal thing is interesting. I know we've dove into it a few times on our show, and it's only getting.
I could talk about this for days.
Yeah, and listen,
because it's so ongoing.
Well, every day
it's ever changing, right?
Yeah, and we'll follow where old Nico goes and plays football. I would bet you there's probably a decision on that in the next couple of weeks. Now that he's out there on the free agent market, I'm sure somebody will swipe him up. But thank you guys for joining us today. Hopefully, you enjoyed the Masters talk. Thank you to Charlie and Nance for joining us. Thank you to Big D over on the production table for taking care of Frank and I as always. And we will see you Friday. NFL season now, baby. Draft's coming up, so we're going to dive deep into that.
We got the NBA, too, right around the corner.
NBA playoffs, the playing games start tomorrow night, so some good stuff coming up. We'll see you then.